The year 2014 was a monumental year for the southern state of Andhra Pradesh in India. The Indian Parliament, through the AP Reorganisation Act, bifurcated the state of Andhra Pradesh. The new residuary state of Andhra Pradesh had 13 districts but no capital of its own, a huge financial deficit and wounded emotions. The newly elected government under the Honourable Chief Minister Shri Nara Chandrababu Naidu was fighting multiple battles on all fronts, but its first major challenge was to find a suitable location for the new capital.
ఒక విజన్ ఉన్న వ్యక్తి, ఒక నాయకుడి విజన్ ఉన్న వ్యక్తి అయితే రిజల్ట్ ఎట్లా ఉంటాయో ఆ రిజల్టే ఈ యొక్క క్యాపిటల్ సిటీకి చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారి మీద నమ్మకంతో.
On 3rd September 2014, the Andhra Pradesh State Assembly passed a resolution to establish a greenfield capital on the banks of the river Krishna between the cities of Vijayawada and Guntur. The area for the city, which covered over 217 square kilometers and comprised of 29 villages, was chosen as it was away from the disaster zone of cyclones and floods and well connected to the entire country. It was also the very location that the Satavahanas, the first Telugu kings, had chosen as their capital over 2000 years ago. The city was aptly named Amaravathi, or a city that lives on forever.
Every project requires land, and a lot of people are dependent on the land, and it is very difficult to value the land. Now, there are certain land acquisition procedures are there. So there, the value of the land depends on its location, and then its valuation by the registration department and the markets. And markets generally look at the value of the land based on the usage, more particularly the current usage. So, and unless otherwise you create a futuristic value for the land, so it is very difficult to really satisfy and do justice to the farmers. So, keeping all of these issues, the government has come up with a very innovative model of land procurement that's called land pooling scheme. In this scheme, there is a paradigm shift in the approach of the government. So government said that, so I'm going to partner with the landowner, and the landowner and the government and the CRDA became the partners.
In December 2014, the Andhra Pradesh Capital Region Development Authority, or APCRDA, was set up as the nodal agency to plan, coordinate, build, execute and finance the new capital city of Amaravathi. The next step was to acquire land for the capital city. The state did not want to undertake the tougher method of land acquisition, as it was not very popular with the general public due to various reasons like low compensation and resettlement issues. The government understood that participation of landowners in development was a time-tested tool to address the issue, but it had only been done on a small scale. The land in the new capital region was owned by innumerable farmers, and to acquire it forcibly would have been a nightmare for the newly elected government. It was a crisis, but the leadership under the Honourable Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Shri Nara Chandrababu Naidu, had the courage to convert a crisis into a challenge, and the Amaravathi Voluntary Land Pooling Scheme was born. A scheme that had no parallel in the entire history of land procurement in the world.
In this land pooling, the farmer is coming up with his land, and the CRDA is bringing the value to that land by creating the required infrastructure, and then getting the best of the brains from the world and giving a proper planning for the area.
The broad objective of the Amaravathi voluntary land pooling scheme was to make the landowners and local residents partners in development of the new capital. Under this scheme, landowners would voluntarily sign ownership rights of their land over to APCRDA. The state would then develop the land by building roads, laying sewage lines and electricity connections. Once done, it would return a smaller portion of the land to the original owners. But now, since the plot had more amenities, its price would have risen to match or surpass the market value of the owner's original land holding.
నా పేరు గద్దే శ్రీధరు, మా తుళ్ళూరు, అయితే నేను గుంటూరులో ఉంటాను. మా పూర్వీకుల నుంచి వచ్చిన పొలం 8 ఎకరాలు ల్యాండ్ పూలింగ్కి ఇచ్చాను. అప్పుడు ముందు పూలింగ్కి ఇవ్వకముందు 20-25 లక్షలు ఉండేది, ఇవాళ 1.5-2 కోట్ల దాకా అయింది అది పొలం. బాగా బెనిఫిట్ పొందాము దానివల్ల.
The Amaravathi land pooling scheme turned out to be a roaring success. In just 60 days, over 28,000 farmers volunteered for this scheme and over 32,000 acres was pooled across 29 villages. But the entire process was not easy. Consultations and negotiations had been the key, and the Honorable Chief Minister led by example as he personally held extensive meetings with the farmers. He unraveled his vision of Amaravathi and made an appeal to the farmers to become role models and support the government in building a dream capital. In January 2015, the government issued a notification for the Amaravathi voluntary land pooling scheme. They established 26 land pooling units in all the villages of the capital area. The senior officer of the rank of Deputy Collector was appointed as the competent authority to head each land pooling unit. The officers worked tirelessly to bridge the aspirations of the farmers and the policies of the government. They held a series of meetings with all the stakeholders. They clarified their doubts, assisted them in undertaking the scheme, resolved disputes, worked with them in physically surveying the lands. They completely won the confidence of the farmers and all the stakeholders. As a part of compensation for land pooling, the government decided to allot returnable plots in developed layouts to farmers depending on the extent and nature of their land. For 1 acre of Jaribu or fertile land, a farmer would get a 1,000 square yard residential plot and a 450 square yards commercial plot. Similarly, a farmer pooling 1 acre of dry land would get a 1,000 square yards residential plot and a 250 square yards commercial plot in return. The government also announced that a dry land owner would get 30,000 rupees annually with a 10% yearly increment for a period of 10 years. A fertile land owner would similarly get 50,000 rupees annually with a 10% yearly increment over 10 years. The dedicated planners of APCRDA prepared over 4,975 different returnable plots to further ensure that the farmers did not face any loss on the crops that were in various stages of harvest. A one-time crop loan waiver was extended. Agriculture workers were also paid 2,500 rupees a month per family and 365 days of employment provided through the National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme.
నిరుపేద కుటుంబం, నాకు ఇటువంటి పొలం లేదండి. నాకు ప్రతి నెల 2,500 వస్తున్నాయి. ఆ నాలాంటి వాళ్ళు ఈ ఊళ్ళో 1,700 మంది ఉన్నారు. వీళ్ళందరూ కూడా ప్రతి నెల 2,500 రావడం, ప్రతి నెల 2,500 ఇస్తున్నారు.
This entire process was complex but never a burden for APCRDA, as it always believed in the farmers' happiness. On December 2015, APCRDA notified the draft master plan for the new capital city. The plan was kept in public domain, published online and in newspapers. Extensive views of all the stakeholders were sought. Consultations were held with the farmers and all the stakeholders by conducting village-level awareness workshops. More than 5,000 different suggestions were given. After due consideration of these views, the government notified the master plan in February 2016. During the same period, draft layout plans showcasing the residential and commercial plots were prepared and put on display in every village. The officials took into consideration all objections and suggestions given by the farmers. The allotment of plots was the next most crucial step in the land pooling scheme. It was carried out with utmost transparency by making use of technology through an electronic lottery system in the presence of the general public and elected representatives. After sufficient trial runs and with the consent of the farmers, the final lottery run was made and the resultant plot allotment was conveyed instantly to the farmers through messages to their mobile phones. The same was also posted on the APCRDA website. The land pooling ownership certificates were also given to the allotted farmers on the spot and the plots were physically handed over to the farmers after peg marking.
మా తుళ్ళూరు గ్రామం అండి. నా పేరు మూల్పూరి రాంబాబు. నేను 6 ఎకరాలు నేలపాడు గ్రామంలో పూలింగ్కి ఇచ్చున్నాను. మాకు ఆల్రెడీ ప్లాట్లు కేటాయించారు.
Today, 28,146 farmers across 29 villages have agreed to give 34,429 acres for land pooling. So far, 32,791 acres of land has been handed over to the government. In return, 57,586 residential and commercial plots were given to the farmers. A survey conducted by the administrative staff The year 2014 was a monumental year for the southern state of Andhra Pradesh in India. The Indian Parliament, through the AP Reorganisation Act, bifurcated the state of Andhra Pradesh. The new residuary state of Andhra Pradesh had 13 districts but no capital of its own, a huge financial deficit and wounded emotions. The newly elected government under the Honourable Chief Minister Shri Nara Chandrababu Naidu was fighting multiple battles on all fronts, but its first major challenge was to find a suitable location for the new capital.
ఒక విజన్ ఉన్న వ్యక్తి, ఒక నాయకుడి విజన్ ఉన్న వ్యక్తి అయితే రిజల్ట్ ఎట్లా ఉంటాయో ఆ రిజల్టే ఈ యొక్క క్యాపిటల్ సిటీకి చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారి మీద నమ్మకంతో.
On 3rd September 2014, the Andhra Pradesh State Assembly passed a resolution to establish a greenfield capital on the banks of the river Krishna between the cities of Vijayawada and Guntur. The area for the city, which covered over 217 square kilometers and comprised of 29 villages, was chosen as it was away from the disaster zone of cyclones and floods and well connected to the entire country. It was also the very location that the Satavahanas, the first Telugu kings, had chosen as their capital over 2,000 years ago. The city was aptly named Amaravathi, or a city that lives on forever.
Every project requires land, and a lot of people are dependent on the land, and it is very difficult to value the land. There are certain land acquisition procedures are there. So there, the value of the land depends on its location, and then its valuation by the registration departments and the markets. And markets generally look at the value of the land based on the usage, more particularly the current usage. So, and unless otherwise you create a futuristic value for the land, so it is very difficult to really satisfy and do justice to the farmers. So